Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fourth session of the day. This is PHP 8.1 Enums. We will be talking about a feature that's not even released in PHP, but it's a feature that I'm personally very excited to talk about. My name is Ayesh Karunaratne. I was born and raised in Sri Lanka. But I work remotely now, so I kind of travel everywhere. I started a website called php.watch 3 years ago. I write about what's new and changed in PHP. You can reach me out on Twitter or just send me an email if you have any questions about the contents in the session. I'm also on Discord. If you have any questions or if you would just like to share the feedback. Let's go here. PHP 8.1 Enums. In other programming languages, we also call them enumerations. Enums is short for enumerations. Now, this will be in PHP 8.1, a future version, but other programming languages such as Swift and Rust and Go, even TypeScript, they have support for enumerations, but PHP 8.1 will be released end of next month. So we talk about enums already here. So this leaves plenty of time to test what's new, to see if we can use them for our applications and see the advantages of using enums. The proposal to include enums in PHP, it started last year, end of last year. This is the third time that we tried to add enums to PHP. The two last proposals, they were failed for various reasons. This proposal was from Ilya Tovilo and Larry Garfield. So we started to vote on the feature and it's already in PHP. PHP 8.1 will be released on November 25th. If there are no objections, it will be released on November 25th. So that said, let's see how the contents of the talk. First, I would like to show why we need enums in the first place. And we will take a look how, if we use enums, how it will help our applications. We will take a look at how enums are implemented in PHP 8.1, and we take a step back and we see the general idea of enums and how enums are implemented in PHP 8.1. We also have some usage examples, how we can use enums and store them in the database, take the values back from the database, all these examples. I will show you how you can try enums today. And we will also take a look at the backwards compatibility impact with enums, because it's a new feature in PHP 8.1. So we need to be mindful if we use enums, we need to make sure it can work in all the PHP versions as well. First, let's see why we need enums. Before we start, I'd like to show one example of using the curl library to make an HTTP request. So this is standard things that we do. We start a curl handler, and then we pass a list of variables, a list of options here, and then the values to the right side, and then we execute the curl request. Now, let's focus here. Here we are saying curl opt URL. It's a label, and then the value is example.com. Here we say the curl the option is curl HTTP version, and then the value is HTTP version 2. So the thing is, if you take a look at this code, it's readable. If I take a look at here, I know that I'm setting the URL option to example.com, HTTP version to be HTTP version 2. But if you take a look at the real values in PHP, they are numbers to the right side. They are still numbers. If you call var dump, they are integers. So that's weird, right? It was working before because in PHP, we declared a PHP constant that says curl up URL, the label should have a value of 10,002. So in the function that is curl set or curl set opt, take a look here. We are saying the option should be a number, an integer. But before we use the label, right? Curl up URL, curl up HTTP version. The thing is, if you call curl setup function with the value 10,002, that works. That's very good. That's because 10,002 is a valid option that curl library knows. So that's fine. But if you call 10,003, that's not a valid one because it just happens that we don't have option with the number 10,003. So if you call this function, PHP will throw an error saying this is not a valid curl option. But the funny thing is, if you call curl setup with 10,004, that's valid because it happens to be that curl of 10,004 is assigned curl of proxy. So how do we know if this is a valid one? So if I tell you this number 10,035, how do you know if this is a valid curl option or not? There's no way to know this. And from this function, curl setup function, you have to validate against all the list of known options. And if this is a valid one, okay. If that's not, if the value is not a valid one, then we have to throw an exception. One way that we try to fix this is by creating a class. So this is what we do with Symfony. This is what we do with Laravel, Drupal, WordPress. Most of the PHP applications, this is what we do. We create a class and then we include a bunch of class constants. So here, these values are contained within the class, and then we assign them a value saying the class constant post status draft should have the value draft. Pending should have the value pending. And in the function, here we have this method called update status. We will accept a string. Although we know that we will only handle these 4 values, we have to say we will accept a string. So again, we are lying here. If you call the function, this method called update status, we have to say post, and then we use this class name, the class constant saying post status published. That's valid. But the problem is they are still strings. So like from the example from curl, if you actually use the numbers, they are valid. But if you pass a value that's not a valid status, let's say draft 2 or pending 5, you have to validate against all of the values, right? And here we are again lying because although we know that we cannot accept all of the strings, we have to say our type is string. This is how we try to fix it in Enums. Let's see how. Before you do this update status method, what we do today is we try to validate this incoming value. So if you try to call update status with the valid option, that's okay. But the problem is we have to check against a list of values we already know. And with the string type, we have to validate every step. And with solid principles, we have a saying these classes should be open for extension, but they should be closed for modification. So it basically means that no one should be able to modify the internals of our class. Now, because this is a public property, and because we accept a string here, it is possible that someone who is using our PHP library or someone from our team, we try to put an invalid value here, and there's a chance that our applications will break at some point. And then we will take a look if we are going to use enums. Let's see how enums can help. I would like to take example from TypeScript. In TypeScript, there's a concept that you can create a new type. So with TypeScript, you can create, for example, post status, and then you can assign them a list of values. So from the last example, I extracted all of these values: draft, pending, return, and published. From the function, we will say for the parameter status, we will accept any value as long as it belongs to the type post status here. So if you call the function with draft, that's valid, because if you look here, this draft is a known type. But if you try to call with something else, say potato, TypeScript will throw an error saying you are expecting a type post status. This is not the type, this is not from the type post status. And the interesting thing is, because we declare the type by ourselves, programs such as PHP Storm or NetBeans or any of the programming tools we use, it can suggest that you are looking for an object from post status. These are the valid values. If you try to pass something else, this is an error. It's very easy to show what's wrong just by looking at the code. With TypeScript, you can create a new enum. This is where we actually get into using enums. You can create a new type with the keyword enum and then give it a name, post status, and then you can add any of the members that you like to put here. And then the function, the parameter status should be from type post status. And when you call this, you will use post status draft, which is to say that you are accepting a value from this enum. In PHP, we follow a similar pattern. Now, with PHP 8.1, you can create something similar with PHP as well. You can extract all of the constants to a single enum, and then optionally, you don't have to do it, but you can also optionally give it a name. So the way this starts is we create an enum with the keyword enum, and then we give it a name. In this example, that's post status. And then you can put all of the constants that we used before, or all of the members inside this enum. So imagine we had this class from before, right? We had the class called post, and we extracted all of these constants from here to here. So we don't actually have to use these class constants anymore. And from here, instead of saying we are looking for a string, now we can say this property value must be from the type post status, because we already have a type called post status here. From the method, instead of saying string, now we will say we will accept a member from post status enum. Because we extracted all of these constants to enum, we don't have to check for all of these things, so we can remove them as well. And when you call the update status method, instead of using this class constant here, we will be using the value from the enum. So before we were using published, the class constant, now we use the value from enum. So this is what I love about enum, because it allows us to simplify the code from this huge class of constants and validations. Sorry, this huge class from constants and validations to here, which is clear, which is more linear, and it actually follows the solid principle, because no one can put an invalid value here, because we are saying the property must be post status, and these are the all possible values. If you try to pass or store something else, PHP will throw a type error saying, hey, you can't do this. So this is the advantage of using enums. It allows us to extract the members to a separate enum, And then we can remove most of the validations that we had to do by ourselves, because PHP will do the type validation for us. In fact, we already had enums in PHP all the way back to PHP 4 and 5. The Boolean type, that's because when we say this function will accept a value from Boolean, what we are really saying is that the function or the return values or the parameters, they must be either true or false. Those are the only two options you can have. You cannot pass null, you cannot pass a string, you cannot pass objects, arrays, or anything. It must be true or false. And instead of saying true or false, we are saying the value should be Boolean. The enums are the same concept, but you can give it any name. You can have any number of members, and they work similar to an object. We will take a look at how enums work in PHP 8.1. So we start every enum with the keyword enum followed by the name. So in this example, I have an enum called suit that is a valid enum. It can have 0 or any number of members. So if you have 0 members, that's still fine. You can have any number of members that you like to hear. It can be 5, 10, 10,000. You can put any number of members inside. The important thing is that all of these members, these are the members that we call, because this is enum itself, and these are the members of the enum. These values are objects. So if you call each object function, it will return true. But if you call var dump, it has its own way, because they're not really objects. They are similar to objects, but they're not exactly 100% like a class object. If you call var dump, you will actually see it as an enum, and within brackets, the name of the member. And this is the good thing. Enums can be namespaced. So you can organize the enums to the specific class that you like to have. You can use app, playing cards, and then you can put the name of the enum. So they are very similar to classes. It can be namespaced, and they can be autoloaded as well. So as long as you follow any of the autoloaders, you can configure your autoloader to load the file that contains the enum. Now, most of us use Composer, right? The autoloader from Composer, it already has support for enums, but you have to use Composer 2.1. It was actually me who submitted the patch, but I don't think they will bring this feature to Composer 1 or Composer 2. So if you would like to use enums, which I highly recommend you do, please update to Composer 2.1. And for each enum, it can be an enum like this, or you can also assign values to enums. So in this example, this suit, and then I'm going to declare that all the values on this enum, they are integers. If I declare that it's integer, all of the members must have an integer assigned to them. It can also be a string. So here we are saying we have the enum called suit, and it will hold string values. So for each member, I have to assign a string value. They can also, like I said, enums are very similar to classes. So for classes, we can have class constants. Enums can also have class constants. PHP classes, they can contain static methods. Enums can also have static methods. The members can have methods as well. I have some examples for these ones in detail. And if we call, excuse me, if we call this, that's the variable that holds the scope of the class. It works with enums as well, and it refers to the enumerated member. All of these enums, they have a property called name. So from here, if I call the name of the enum, double colon and the member, there's a property called name, which refers to the name of the constant. And if there's a value, there's a property called value as well. So here we assign this string value for each of these card suits. If you take a look at the values here, you can actually get the value back. So this is the name, this is the value. So name is the name of the member, and value is the value that we assign. Not all of the enums have value assigned to it, but if you have assigned a value, you can retrieve the value here as well. The last example we saw enum with post status, with draft, pending, returned, and published. These are what we call unit enums. So there are two types of enums in PHP. The first one is called unit enums, and internally there is an interface that is called unit enum. You don't have to say that you implement in unit enum, because PHP by default implements this interface called unit enum. And from this interface, there's only one static method that says cases. And all of the members, they have a name. So here, I have this member called post status draft, which is here. And if I call name property, it will show the actual name of the member. If I call the static method called cases, it will return an array of all of the members. This is important that it returns an array of members. It's not an array of values. So you will actually get the member itself. The last example, if we add any values to them, these are what we call backed enums. So these are the two enums we have in PHP, unit enums and backed enums. They are the only two types of enums we can have. Backed enums, similar to unit enums, they extend and they implement an interface called backed enum. So from backed enum interface, you can still use the name because it extends unit enums. The name is still draft, but there's also a new property called value. So if you get the value from here, you will actually get the values assigned to the member. There are also two methods. So if you try to get the enum member from the value, so these are the values. Two methods. If you try to call try from with draft, and try from this value draft, both of them will return the enumerated object, because draft is a known value. So you can get the enum object from a string. For example, if you have this draft value from the database, you can create an enum value from this string or integer or any of these values back to an enum. The difference between try from and from is that if you call try from, and if there are no objects with this name, it will return null. So for example, we try to call potato. There is no enum from post status enum called potato. So try from method will return null. And if we use from static method, it will throw a value error. So depending on if you would like to return null, or if you like to make PHP throw an exception, you can use try from or from methods depending on how it works for you. And let's take a step back. We saw how enums work. We saw some examples, but let's see how enums are supposed to work in PHP. First is that enums is a type that can contain a fixed number of members. So when we say it's a type, it means that you can use the name of the enum as a parameter, as a return value, or as the type of the property. And PHP will do the type checking. This is similar to Boolean. Like I said before, if you define that this value should be, let's say, post status, PHP will make sure that all the values that you use, return or store, they belong to this type. So all of the values, all the times, they must be from the type post status. This is the advantage of using enums, because we don't have to validate the enum by ourselves, because now PHP will use its type system and will throw type errors if we try to pass a value that's not valid. And the second point is that they are contained. So, with curl example, we defined a set of a set of constants in the global namespace. We have around 120 option constants with curl opt underscore and the name. There's like 120. With enums, you can contain all of them. They are similar to a class constants. So you can contain and give it a name. And the other thing is they are fixed. So if you have an enum, all the members that you have in enum, they are fixed. You cannot add new types, you cannot remove existing types, you cannot change the values of the type. So throughout the application, you can be sure, PHP guarantees that all the values inside this enum, the number of values and the values, they are fixed. No one can add them, no one can change them, no one can remove them. So like I said, they are enumerated types. So from example, we have a function that accepts, that is named play card, and it will accept a value from the enum suit. If you call play card function with a valid value, because this is a valid one, suit spades is a valid value. So PHP will happily accept this value. That works, that's fine. But if you try to pass something else, here, play card, we are trying to pass apple. This is not a valid one. This does not belong to the enum called suit, right? So PHP will throw a type error like here. If you try to pass something else, or if you try to pass a string or anything other than a value from suit, spades, hearts, clubs, or diamonds, PHP will throw an error. You don't have to validate these incoming values again against a list of values that we know. You can just keep using them and PHP will do the type checkings for you. And they are closed set. So if you define that this is our enum, you cannot extend, if you define this enum, you cannot extend this enum, and you cannot add new values, you cannot remove them. All the values here are fixed. It's closed. You cannot change them. You cannot do any modifications to them. They are also fixed members. Now, this is probably the most important difference between objects and enums. So in PHP, if you create a new object and then assign them some values, and if you create another object, they are not identical, because internally, every member, every class object, they have internal IDs that do not match. So they are not identical. With enums, if you compare one of the members, for example, we have suit spades. If you compare suit spades to the same enum, they are identical. So if you have one enum, and then if you create another enum from, let's say, from the database, or a form value or anything, they will be identical. So you can put this enum to the database, take them back from the database and they will be identical, which is different from class objects. If you have a class object and then if you put them on the database and then if you bring them back, they will not have the same ID. They are not identical, but with enums, they are still identical. And like I said, they are fixed. So with classes, you can extend one class and then add new class constants. You can add new methods. You can add then new properties. But with enums, you are not allowed to extend enums. So when you define enum suit, that's it. They are the only values that you can have. You cannot extend any enum. So this is again the difference between class constants and enums. And probably the most important thing is that enums, you are not allowed to have properties. So this is because enums are a type. They are not data objects. Enums are supposed to work as a type. Because if you have suit spades here, suit space, they have to be identical. If you have properties, they cannot be identical. So you cannot actually have properties in enums. You cannot declare properties. You cannot assign new values to enum objects. This is a major difference between classes and enums. If you also declare that here I declare an enum called HTTP methods, and if I say that they will have string values, I have to assign a value. This is not allowed because what I'm saying to PHP is that I'm going to declare an enum with the name HTTP methods, and they will have a value string. But if I don't define the strings here, PHP will say you have to assign a value. And the names of the cases here, this is not allowed because the name of the member, they have to be unique. If I have an enum called test, all of the names of the members, they must be unique. This is kind of obvious, right? But if I have an enum with backed values, so this is a unit enum, this is a backed enum. If I create this enum and say the value is bars, and then if I have another enum with the same value, PHP doesn't allow this. This is because from the examples I will show you that you can take enum back from the value. So if you have two values like this for different enums, PHP can't figure out which enum to use. So this is not allowed either. They must be unique, the names and the values. They must be unique. And like I said, enums are very similar to classes. They can have namespaces and they also support traits as long as these traits don't have any properties in them. They also support auto loading. So if you have the namespace and then if you have the name of the enum, you can use your autoloader to load this file that contains all of the enums. And they also support magic methods such as this one, this _class, _. It works here as well. And it also supports instance of operator. You can see if you have a variable, you can see if this belongs to post status just by using instance of. So $sign variable, instance of post status, that works as well. And importantly, they support methods, static methods and regular methods. They both work with enums. Now to the good parts, we will take a look at some of the usage examples of using enums in PHP 8.1. So all of these examples, you have to use PHP 8.1 because they are in PHP 8.1. I will talk about backwards compatibility, but right now you have to try them on PHP 8.1. So we go back to our last example. We have a type, an enum called post status with the values draft, pending, return, and publish. They are unique. The names of the members are unique. The values are also unique. So this works. And we have the class from the last time. We have the ID, title, and the type that is supposed to store a member from this enum. And from the function, if you want to call, create a new post, the new post object, you have to pass the value from here. So this is the function parameter, and this is where we store the value, and this is the return value. So these are the classes. Now imagine we have a post that we have stored in the database. So we have the ID, we have the title, and then we have the post status. So if you want to select all the posts that are published, so from the database, we need to select all of the fields from the table post, and the post status should be the value that we pass. Now, they are objects. Like I said before, all of the members in one enum, they are objects. So here we use the value to return, to get the string value. So we can use them on the database. The value published is here. So what the database says is select all field from post table where post status is equal to here, published. So this works. This is how we get the string value from an enum. If we are going to insert a post to the database, this is standard SQL. We have this query that says insert into post table, ID, title, and post status, and the values. This is integer, string, and this is also a string because MySQL or PGSQL databases cannot store PHP objects. So we have to convert them to PHP objects, from PHP objects to strings. So again, we use the getStatus method, which will return an enum, and then we use a property called value to get the string value from here. It can be published, return, pending, or draft. And when we fetch these values from the database, this is the result from the database. We have the ID equal to 42, title is PHP Enums, and post status is a string. So now we need to convert the string published back to an object that is one of the members from the enum. So we create this new post, and then we call update status function, update status method, and then we use the from method here to return the enum object using the value from here. So what we try to do here is we take the enum object back from the string value. So we use from here, so it must return a valid enum based on the string. If we use try from, it will return null if there's no valid label for, if there's no valid enum with this value published or published 5 or some invalid values like this. Now we will take a look at how we can try enums today. Like I said, PHP 8.1 will have enums, and if you would like to try out enums today, there are a few ways. The first one is probably the easiest one. There's a website called eval3v4l.org. You can try out all of your enums, all of the examples from this presentation. You can just put the code and then evaluate them on the website. You don't have to compile PHP by yourself. This, I think, is the easiest way to try enums if you like to try them right away. It's also possible to use Docker images. PHP Daily, they publish Docker images every day with the latest PHP versions. So probably the second most easiest way would be to just use these Docker images and then try PHP 8.1 today. Or you can also compile PHP 8.1 by yourself from the source. So I have written some guides here. Like compiling PHP is kind of out of this presentation, out of the scope of this presentation. But if you like to try PHP 8.1 today, that's also possible. Now, PHP 8.1 will be released end of next month, but we already have a couple releases that we call release candidates. So if we go to php.net, you can see that PHP 8.1, RC1, RC2, and RC3, they will be released in the coming next few weeks. So you can download them. If you are using Windows, you can download the compiled binaries and then use them right away. PHP 8.1 is also available on Fedora. I have some guides about it. I will write on Liskov as well. And lastly, we will talk about backwards compatibility. This is a very small part because unfortunately, it's a new feature in PHP 8.1 and it's a major new feature. So if we try to use enums in all the PHP versions, it will result in a syntax error because PHP 8 and PHP 5, 7, and 8.0, they have no idea about enums because it's using a new syntax. It's a major new change in PHP. So all of the features that I talked here today, it's very unfortunate that it's not possible to use them in PHP 8.0 or 7. But if you can make sure that all of your applications will work on PHP 8.1, you can start to use PHP 8.1 right away. There's another option. There's a library called PHP Enum. This is a PHP library that you can install from Composer or use them with your package manager. If you take a look here, they are not the same as enums we talked before. Because with enums, we use the keyword case and then the name, the value. But with this library, you can use a class constant. I don't really recommend using this one because they are, this library, it cannot give you all of the advantages of using enums. So the best approach would be to update to PHP 8.1 and require all of the applications must run on PHP 8.1 or PHP or later versions. And I have a list of further resources that I think might help. This is the link to my slides of the presentation here today. I also wrote a pretty extensive guide on using enums. Here you can see all of the changes in PHP 8.1, which are massive. There are so many new features in PHP 8.1. Like the best one is enums, of course, but there are other exciting new changes in PHP 8.1 as well. This is where we voted on the feature. So here people have the conversation and rationale behind some of these design changes. Derek, the person who works on Xdebug and PHP internals podcast, they did a podcast on enums feature, which is around 30 minutes. It's a very good podcast to listen to. This is where the actual code changes were happened for PHP enums, and the other articles I mentioned to you before. before in this presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or I'm also on the Discord on this room to answer any of the questions. And finally, I would like to say thank you for having me here on this presentation. It's such a lovely present, nice t-shirts and very happy people. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I hope you will enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.